Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, my guest is Sean Pritchard, CEO of INHABIT. Sean, how are you today?
I'm doing so well, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on, buddy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. And we basically known each other. I mean, there was a little bit of DM going back and forth as far as Instagram, but honestly, like we had our first conversation maybe a week ago, all of a week ago, right? And just totally felt like for myself, I'll speak for myself. I felt very connected to you right away. I just felt like, man, this is like one of my like old high school buddies that I just haven't seen in a while. Like really connecting with you, dude. So yeah, I'm really excited to we crammed a lot of you know, collaboration plans and just life stories and many, many different topics in like a 20-minute container. So now we got an hour today. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Yes, dude. Triple the time, triple the fun for for
Right?
sure.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. When we hopped on last week, I just couldn't believe how quickly the time went. And no, definitely a kindred spirit, man. I felt the connection immediately.
Rad. Love that. Love that. Well, let's talk about, yeah, like connectedness. There's going to be a lot of different things coming up. And, for you, it's like we're talking like breath, breathing, and amongst some other topics coming up, but that's what you're doing. Like let's start with INHABIT. Like what is INHABIT? What are you looking to do? I know you have a massive, we call it BHAG goal, like the big hairy audacious goal. You had a different name for it, but you have an amazing one that you list on your Instagram. So let's just start with that. Like INHABIT, what's going on with you these days?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So just a little bit of background on myself and how I got here today. Um, growing up, I was very into. I played soccer in college. I was a personal trainer. I coached high school soccer. I loved the sports and wellness world, but I didn't really quite understand how I could turn that into a business and really live that passion. And so I kind of went on a different path where I was in the startup world for a while working in everything from foreign currency to industrial lighting. I drove Uber and Lyft. I delivered food out in San Francisco. And then I was like, okay, I need to go into a more structured environment where I can learn from people who've really built businesses successfully in the past. And so I got into tech sales out in San Francisco. Started out as an SDR, even though I already had 5 years at that point of sales experience outside of the industry. They're like, you have to start at the bottom of the totem pole. So had a big ego check for sure, which was really helpful, honestly. Hard in the moment, but really critical, honestly, for me to start and get the fundamentals really down. So going through this process of going through tech, it was interesting because there's a lot of just pressure, honestly, and stress in sales, as you know, with your own business, having to sell programs and having to sell technology that ultimately is helping people, but is paying the bills at the end of the day. And I had prior in college, I was dealing with anxiety and depression, which initially led me to meditation and to learning about breath. So I had some familiarity with mental health challenges, needing to achieve goals, and what I could do holistically to move through that. So when I was in tech and I was building my career, very long days, highly competitive environment, and I started to see, I'm like, man, you know what? This breathing stuff, meditation, exercise, my diet, my morning and evening routines, how I reflect, all this stuff is contributing to me having actually better numbers. So I was doing breath work at the time before my calls, and being able to lower my heart rate and to increase my active listening abilities and be more present with the prospect. Because, I mean, let's face it, calling a stranger out of the blue to convince them to take more time with you is an inherently difficult like thing to do. And there's a psychology behind it. We could have a whole podcast on that. It's just
Yeah.
hilarious and
Yeah.
fun. But so that was going on, and then I went to a new company in tech. I went from an SDR. I eventually got to an account executive position and grew through that. And this was during COVID. This is a total of 4 years in tech sales. And then I thought that I finally got to this position, the mid-market account executive. The pay was great. My team was killing. I loved the product. The company I was at was IPO bound, and I was like, okay, like only hundreds will rain from the skies, and all will be well, and I'll be happy. And then I was like, I'm miserable. So it was this moment of like frustration, but also um, self discovery of like, why is this? So I finally get in this position. I'm about 2 months in to my new role, and I'm in Lapine, Oregon, and I'm camping out with some friends. And I get up early one morning, like 7 o'clock in the morning. Beautiful morning out there. It's like cold, crisp, and I have my sweatshirt on, and I'm out on the picnic table, and I got my hood up, and I'm just like meditating, and I'm tapped in for like 15 minutes, and then I get this. I didn't even get chills talking about this because it's that like powerful for me. I get this visceral, vibratory feeling, and just flash imagery of me going back into wellness and taking breath and meditation and all these skills that I've learned and just sharing it with people. And that's all that I had, that initial feeling. And it was so powerful. And I opened my eyes and I'm like, oh, I know, like, I know what I'm supposed to do. This is sick. And then reality hits and I'm like, all right, now I have to leave this job. I have to get retrained in these areas. I have to figure out a business model. It's during COVID. How am I even going to do this? So it went from that moment, which was in July, fast forward now to October, and I'm in a rough spot. I basically have shelved all of these whispers that now have transcended into screams or more aggressive, like inner dialogues. And I'm still meditating, self reflecting. And it's one of those things where there was no other way for me to move out of that space without a big decision. So at that point, I got my family and friends together, the people I loved and supported me the most, and I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to leave. I got some money saved up and go and start this business. And I had this idea at that time. One of the things I had cooked up was creating a new type of training facility. Imagine like Equinox meets the rainforest and like a high, like a nature-driven fitness experience where even all the equipment is more wooden and natural, open air facility, no mirrors, nature embedded into like meditation pads off of a tree, yoga rooms with waterfalls, like a whole different world basically
Wow.
in a like a new age gym, bringing in other components of cold exposure with tanks and like all the things that I had studied, even sound therapy, like a bunch of things there. And I wrote out this model and I'm like, okay, like this actually could work. I'm going to start to think about tapping the VC community. Maybe I'll raise. And then I'm thinking about this pitch. And I'm like, all right, so it's COVID and I'm about to pitch a breathwork facility. Like, this is not the model. This is not the time or the place for this. So
Yeah.
I put on a more rational hat and I was like, okay, what would this look like without the facility, having a more of a virtually driven training business with an app where I had programs around breathwork, meditation, self-development, using other techniques I had learned around visualization to help people essentially unlock their highest self and help businesses to make more revenue and treat their employees better. So that's where I started, man. And I launched that in, let's see, it was officially launched in April 2021. And then we had our offerings that rolled out in August 2021. And here we are, man, about 2 years later, coming up on 2 years. And it's incredible, man, to see the progression, like having worked with publicly traded companies, the US Paralympic and Olympic Committee, getting to travel around the world. Like it's just been an amazing journey. And that goal that you had referenced to teach 1 million people how to properly breathe. I was going through a very difficult time about 6 months ago with a breakup with candidly with my business partner. We had spoken about this. It was very challenging, but at that time I had got a coach who was mentored directly by Bob Proctor, a guy who I really trusted and liked. And he helped me take that goal, rework my self-limiting beliefs, old paradigms, things that were holding me back, and use that goal to teach 1 million people how to properly breathe by January 2027 as my marker. And I do visualization and read that every single day. And that clarity, man, is just, you cannot put a price on that, of knowing what you're supposed to do when you open your eyes every day. And that's led me to today.
Hell yeah. Nice, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, that fills in a lot of just a lot of questions there. It's perfect. And then of course there are some other questions that come from it. So with many topics we can dive into. But yeah, dude, that's like, it's amazing. And yeah, it's so refreshing to see like a good old fashioned one of those, like 1 million people, like, I don't know, it doesn't see that too much anymore. Like people are putting themselves out there but it seems like almost in installment plans, and you're just like, boom, million people. As soon as I saw it, I was like, whoa, look at this guy. This is awesome. Yes. So yeah, no, it's I appreciate that about you. You know, I admire that in you. And just the way you're talking about it, like you can tell when somebody's passionate about it. You're doing it for the well-being of other people, and you know, a byproduct, of course, would be, you know, the whatever you said in your, we'll call it your past life. Like, oh, there'll only be hundreds coming down. You know, that'll be the
Yeah.
byproduct, but that's certainly secondary to why you're doing this in the first place. And even, you know, I was getting a very strong visual of like that outdoor forest. And it's funny you say it's like new age, but honestly, to me, it almost sounds like that's perhaps what life was like, you know, back in the day, right? Where like, you know,
Yes.
the ancient humans, that was like the way they worked out and such. And obviously you're putting a modern twist on it. It's just a really cool idea, dude. So appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it's interesting. There's this guy, Graham Hancock. I don't know if you've heard of him before. He does a lot of work in like ancient civilizations around archaeology, and one
Mm.
of the things he calls out is he studies the human story back, you know, as far as it goes, and that we're a species with amnesia, and so we forget these things that we did thousands of years ago around proper breathing, around sunlight, around how what to eat and how to live, and that now we're in these modern worlds and we forgot about these things, but they took place, you know. They're so your point around the new age component, it's just putting exactly a new twist on it, but working out in nature was like the OG training, you know. It's
Right.
like
Right.
people would take
Exactly.
rocks and like, you
Yeah.
know, put them on top of things, and that was
Yeah.
like your
Yeah.
compound exercise for the day.
Totally. Put rocks on other rocks. Like, there we go.
Yeah,
Feel pretty good
yes.
now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And then like meditation by a waterfall. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally, man. I want to get into the breathing because I know you have a very that's like your jam in a lot of ways. So I do want to get into that. And before I do though, like we came up with the visualizations, and I find that I actually have a Bob Proctor visualization meditation that I listen to, and it's very good. It's all about, it's like a lot about like the, you know, the attraction, the law of attraction and such. So I'm just kind of curious. I always ask people that are into visualizations how they go about it. So can you share a little bit as far as like, is it like journaling? Do you have a vision board? I imagine breathing comes into it as well. Just, yeah, shed a little light on like the actual visualization part of it, please.
Yeah, 100%. So the key thing that I visualize, so this goal that I say every day, so I am so happy and grateful. Now I have taught 1 million people how to properly breathe by January 2027. The packed stadiums and arenas for INHABIT's workshops fill me with joy,
Mm.
now that I have unlocked their highest potential and giving them the means to be able to transform the world and how they want. So I'm saying that every single day. And then I do a visualization with that. First, I'm lowering my heart rate through breathing and really honing my focus. And then I travel to this world of doing a stadium show, like in a performance. Like that is my pinnacle thing when I really want to be one of the best and top voices in the world one day. And I'm going to do this for as many years to reach those people, because, like you said, this is truly my mission. And I believe that the monetary side, just to call this out, will be directly correlated to how much value I provide. And that's like the way that it really goes down in my mind. So having 1 million people, if I'm serving that many people, I know that even if it's a blend of free sessions, paid sessions, that I'll be where I want to be on that front. So when I tap into this world, I am first bringing in the senses. So this is a very important part of visualization. You want to make it as real as possible. So first, down regulating the nervous system, bringing yourself into a calm, relaxed space where you have more capacity, candidly, to create mentally and focus. Like that's step one. The
Mhm.
second piece of this is you want to have the scene already mapped out and written down. So for me, I now like I when I start my visualization, I'm walking out on stage. I'm doing these breathwork sound experiences now with my brother, who's a touring guitarist and producer, and so he's doing the music side of it. I have the guided meditation and breathing piece, and so I see him to my left. I adjust my wireless microphone. I look out into the crowd. I see my mom, my dad, and my brother there. You know, they have tears in their eyes for the progression of this. I looking up into the higher levels of the arena. I can even see the dust on the floor, like certain numbers on chairs, like making this so specific, and then bringing in the senses. So I have the sight thing that I called out. What do I smell? What am I touching the wireless mic thing? What am I hearing? The sound of the crowd, even tasting, like, am I sweating a bit? Like what is that component? So making it as real as possible. And then this is some Joe Dispenza approach as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe's
Yeah.
work.
Mhm.
So he really believes that, one, you have to bring in emotion. Because emotion has high energetic resonance. So in order to be able to draw which in what you want, you have to have a very clear emotional. So for me, it's that excitement, that joy, that gratitude, and I can feel that. And I get emotional, truthfully, when I've done it so many times that I'm like going into this other world. So you have the emotion, and then you have to live it, and whether you're writing it to as if it's happening now. Like, you can't say, and this is just all my research and even subjective experience with this, is I will do this when that, because that's too ambiguous in terms of
Mhm.
the blueprint by which you're looking to draw that energy. It should be in I am. It should be in the present tense.
Right.
So and then I do this for around 5 to 10 minutes, and I just live that world every day, and then I know exactly where I'm going. Like, that's kind of how I've structured it.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, the Dr. Joe thing. I think there's something along the lines of like I'm about halfway through the Breaking the Habit of Yourself audiobook
Oh,
right now.
oh, it's a great
Yeah.
one, dude.
Good one. Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, just a quick segue off of this onto the book is like I love how there's this idea now that there's like these, especially in Western culture, where the idea of like science and spirituality
Mm,
are sort of like they can't coexist. But with Dr. Joe and there's like Dr. Kim Duramo, who's like an actual doctor that went into a spiritual sort of sphere as well. And they're actually able to scientifically explain why this kind of stuff does work is so cool to me. You know what I mean? And like Eastern culture, it's like they've known it for years. They didn't necessarily need to prove it. They're like, this is what's there to prove? Meanwhile, over here in the
yeah.
Western, they're like, we get very skeptical, like you say, the amnesic side of things. We're just kind of like, well, if it can't be explained with science, like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But now there's like Dr. Joe comes in, it's like, actually, I can explain it with science. So, which is
Yes.
so rad. But yeah, like, it's like, I'm just trying to fill in the blanks for me. It's like, there's like it's like the think, experience, and then do. But like if you can, with the visualization, you can
Mm.
take out the experience because you're experiencing it in your visualization, so you can like skip the step, and then it's just like a way to do instead of like, I don't know, do you know, it was part of the book anyways. Is that ringing any bells
Yes.
for you? Okay.
No, totally. And what I'll call out about that is that the mind does not know the difference between real and imagined. And
Yes.
this is the thing that's so critical, is that, and I'll share just very briefly a visualization study as a way to show how powerful this is, in an example with basketball. So in the Soviet Union in the 70s, there was a basketball team that was looking at how visualization can be applied in order to elevate their free throw percentage. For making them. So what they did is they took three groups. The first group, they had them go into the gym every day for 30 minutes and shoot free throws. The second group was the control. So they did not work on free throw shooting at all, continued to play, but didn't practice the specific part of the game. And then the third group, they went into a dark room every day for 30 minutes. They held the ball in their hand, and they would just, get the smell of the basketball. They would visualize themselves shooting a perfect free throw, hitting the net, the backspin, coming back to themselves, and making it as real as possible. So 1 month goes by, and then they, look at the data, like, where are we at here after testing? It's fascinating. So the first group, they improved by 24%. So almost 25% over the course of a month, which is pretty positive, from a work ethic standpoint. 30 minutes a day, like, that's a pretty sizable improvement. The second group, they didn't do anything, so they didn't improve at all. The third group improved by 23%, and they didn't even shoot a free throw once. So we're talking about a 1% difference between action and just the visualization. And the reason why, and they tested this, they put EEGs and EMGs on people's bodies to be able to understand the electrical activity that's happening through visualization. And it's the
Mhm.
same thing, man. And Dr. Joe dives in and does this even. He takes this one step further, and this stuff is just wild. And there are papers on this that he's put out that look at muscle growth without even touching weights and visualizing by. I'm talking like an 6-week study. Pretty sure it was 6 weeks. It was a 10% growth in the bicep without even touching the weight. Like mind blowing,
That's
dude. So at
insane.
this point, like
Yeah.
I do after
Yeah.
like digging into all these things, I'm just convinced. I'm like, I've
Yeah.
seen enough. I've done enough on myself where it's just this has to be part of my daily habit if I
Yeah.
really want to do something significant in my life and like this.
Definitely, definitely. And speaking of daily habits, like what I imagine you have this visualization, is this something that's firm, locked in as like a morning routine? Is it like shared? Is it you bookend your day with the visualization, like before you go to bed and when you wake up? Do you have some flexibility, or is it like some rigidity with some of these morning routines and daily consistent habits that you have?
If I'm traveling, which I've been doing a lot the past few weeks, it's like it can be sometimes morning or evening. When I'm home and I'm chilling, I have two things that I do every day related to this. So the first thing is my coach Kevin, the Bob Proctor mentee. He has something called Success Before Sunrise, which
Ooh.
is every morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard. I get on. Actually, my brother's part of this community too. Other entrepreneurs around the country, and we do 20 minutes of journaling specifically related to this big C type goal. So for me, and I describe the reason why, like when I was articulating to you and talking about how clean I have it in my mind, is I've spent, I don't even know how many, like over the past few months, writing this every morning about
Yeah.
what this scene looks like. And so there are three levels to it. The first one is you write the goal.
Mhm.
Um, and then I write that once. And then you write I see myself. And so you describe the scene. And that takes me about another 10 minutes. And in the last 5 minutes, it feels so good to. And
Mhm.
then I journal on that specifically. And I'm describing the emotions of, not having to, I haven't had, like, one of the things I say is I haven't thought about finances in years because money abundantly flows to me and my family. Like, that's one piece of, like, it feels so good to be able to serve this many people at one time in
Mhm.
such a capacity. It feels so good to now have the training. Like, so I just jam on all those things still related to elevating your vibration. But I do that when I'm here every morning, and then before I go to bed, I say the goal, and then I do the visualization before I do breathing, and then um, I tape my mouth shut with hostage tape. So I so that
The
this
for the
comes,
nose breathing, right?
yeah, for the nose breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
can see, I'm pretty invested at this point.
Yeah, yeah. You got it hostage tape, dude. You got to like market that, like have the like inhabit. I imagine you've already thought of this, but have like the inhabit. Uh,
Dude, it would be sick. I reached
yeah,
out to these guys. I have like a little affiliate thing with them, but I just believe in what they're doing. And it's crazy. Just a quick story on this. My
yeah,
dad has been snoring, no joke, and getting whacked by my mom for like 35 years. Like
right.
that,
Yeah, yeah.
like definitely a thing of tension in their
Yes,
marriage. And
sure.
and and I'm like, I tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, like I got this like hostage. I got all my family on, like, they were laughing the other day of like the cold exposure stuff, breath work, like all these things that are within, and they're into it. But I came to my dad and I was like, Dad, you gotta start taping. He's like, no shot. I'm like, dude, look at this. This is actually legit. Like, just try it. 1 week in, man, not snoring at all. He's been doing it
Wow.
for 4 weeks, and now he
Wow.
said his arm is less bruised. Like they're
Yeah,
vibing,
yeah,
I guess, more. Like it's
yeah.
it's like,
His arm
and
is
my
less
mom,
bruised. Yeah, mysteriously. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so funny. Oh
But yeah,
man.
it's like it's in their own way. It's created less tension in their even in their marriage from this 25-cent piece of tape.
Yeah,
Like, over,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I can get into the science around breathing in a bit if you want. But
We
it's
definitely
just,
will.
yeah. So basically, nasal breathing is critical for the
Yeah,
body.
definitely.
For,
Well, let's get into it for sure. One final question before we get into the actual breathing, for because I definitely want to give an ample amount of time to go into that. Is with the visualizations, and you've talked about there, you've hinted there has been some anxiety, histories of anxiety, depression, other, so talking about a little bit more of the shadow work. So like when you do have, and I imagine you do have a degree of the self-doubt, like the imposter syndrome, inner dialogue that can
mm,
show up in entrepreneurial pursuits, just in life in general, you know what I mean? How do you navigate that these days? I imagine it's turned down a lot, but perhaps, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How do you deal with the self-doubt that when it does come back, when you're feeling a little bit less of your energy and such?
yeah, it's a great question, man. I really lean on. I mean, the breathing component is so key. What I've noticed, dude, is that, so let's say that you have you have an emotion that arises in the body, like I'm unworthy. And then the emotion rises, and then it's coming into the thought, and you're telling yourself that story now that I'm unworthy. Then there's that feedback back to the body.
Mm.
I'm reaffirming this, that I am unworthy. And then you begin to act as if you were a person that is unworthy and lacks self-worth. So
Mm.
it is a chain that I've seen, at least. And so for me, if I am able to, as this thought arises, to look at it, this is some like, mindfulness, a detachment component with meditation, look at it, take a breath, and then reframe that of I am worthy and provide high value to people, and then take that next step forward before it has chance to build into the story. Now, this is talk about shadow work. This is now 10 years past where I have been, I was in a really dark place during college for a stretch of time. And to the point where I was struggling to even go into, and I was always an extroverted person, but I have an introverted side, but I would struggle going into rooms of large groups of people and talking. I just be by myself. I was in like a very deep loner state. I just was going through a bit of a hard time. And now I find that if I'm able to, one, as this arises, immediately come to the breath after recognizing and isolating that thought, and then reaffirm something positive in that moment, it's retraining my mind for how to think. And I'll give you, there's a really good thing that my coach uses. He talks about the X paradigm and the Y paradigm. And so
Mhm.
the X paradigm, imagine that is where you are currently at today. So you have the habits, you have the self beliefs, you have the current paradigm that you're in that is keeping you to a certain, let's call it energetic level, even financial, relationship, all those things. That's where you're at right now. And then you have the Y paradigm. This is where you're looking to go, where
Mm.
you're looking to evolve to. So let's say from there, for me, like, that's my elevation of my financial success. I'm serving more people. I have these high beliefs of that I can do anything, and I'm kind and loved, and like just pretty much my best self, essentially. What happens is that if we're looking to go from the X paradigm to the Y paradigm, I almost think about, this is something I'm adding on to his, I've been thinking about it like it's a magnet. So it's like when you try to shift over, you constantly are getting pulled back to your original self, your original habits, your original ways of thinking that are holding you in that world. But through, and this is why I love what you do, through community, through consistency of yourself and others affirming that higher self, through your training and daily habits, you can then pull yourself into where you want to be. But it is a constant, honestly, it took me, like, no joke to you, like 6 or 7 months of living. I was just constantly getting pulled back, constantly snapping back. And then, like, about 2 months ago, I let go, and I had this, like, dude, like a beautiful, like, just emotional moment when I was in Miami. I was like, I was by myself. I was like looking up at the sky, and I was listening to music, and I was like, does life not have to be hard? Am I putting so much of this friction and resistance and pain
Mm.
and suffering into my life from my own perceptions? And I
Mm.
was like, I'm done. Like, I'm letting go of this. And it was like, from that moment, it just, my life changed, honestly. And I now exist in that Y paradigm. And I still feel some pull, but dude, it's like it's not even close to what it was. So that was my breakthrough of
Yeah,
looking back at that period of time.
it's beautiful. So that's fairly recent, like you were saying. This is within the last couple of months. You were saying even.
Yes, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's been a huge shift
Good shift.
in my life in the last 6 months, but specifically related to that thing we were just talking about, like
Yeah,
2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful time to have that happen. Like with the springtime, spring season, new beginnings. You know what I mean? Coming out of the thaw, the winter, and such. Such a cool time for it too. Yeah, that's some great insight, man. And like, yeah, I definitely feel that. I wonder what it is about let's just riff on this for a few minutes. What it is about, and I like that magnet idea. There's like Ed Milet talks about, like, we have an internal thermostat, right, which is our finances, our relationships, and such, and we can like heat it up, but then it'll just go back to 21 or whatever. So it's the idea is to get to the point where your new baseline is 26, and so you're heating up the room, and that's where you stay, right? So similar in that sense. So what is it about why people You know what I mean? Like whether it's self-sabotage, like I'm wondering with people that you've worked with, is it something there? Is it a lack of awareness? Like, are they not realizing they're doing this? Is it a lack of just like consciousness? Like, same thing, awareness, consciousness. Like, are they not aware of like patterns that they have?
Mm.
Are they, or is it like, is it a self-worth issue? They are realizing they're somewhat intentionally self-sabotaging. Like what have you seen as far as like why people have that go back to that x-axis so often?
Yeah, dude, I think it's all of those things. And I'll even tie it into some of the neurological components of habit creation. Like it
Mm.
takes, around, science says somewhere around 60, 66 days to create a new habit. And when we think about like there's this amazing what's her name? Tara Swart. Have you heard of her before?
I've heard
She
the
is an
name.
MIT
Yeah,
author and professor that focuses deeply on mindset and visualization in
of
particular.
course. Okay, does she have a book called Mindset? Isn't it just called Mindset? Is it the
I'm
same
not
person I'm thinking of?
I'm
Anyway,
not sure. It
sorry
could
to jump
be,
in. Yeah,
but yeah, she talks about this idea. Imagine that you are in a meadow, and there are these two paths that you walk every single day, and the meadow is thick. There are flowers, there are bushes, and wildlife and stuff, and you are walking through, and you're starting to trample down this path to be able to get through the high grass, etc. And you walk that one day, you walk it 2 days, you walk it 500, 1,000, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it may be, that pathway is going to be very, very comfortable and trampled down. Think
mm.
about now when someone goes, "Oh yeah, actually, like they got ice cream across the way or something like this other direction," and you're like, "I like ice cream, like I'll go check it out," and you go for the first time. Now you have to then, and this is creating neural pathways. This is the example. You have to now stamp down and create these new neural pathways to habit creation. It's a big thing. And so if you're constantly going and walking this path and then you go back over and back over, it doesn't give the brain enough time to really carve out these neural pathways necessary for change.
Right.
So that's like one of the things that I think is really hard is change is incredibly difficult without a high degree of mindfulness and awareness, like you've called out so well, and consistency, like deep consistency
Mm.
of what are the stories and dialogues that are really running your life. And that's where I feel like the self-awareness piece, because some people may not even know that they're self-sabotaging. Some people may not even know that their self-worth has been curated perhaps from a family thing that happened with trauma 15
Mhm.
years ago that's actually been coloring their perception in so many ways. So that self-awareness piece, I like to say that self-awareness is the key that unlocks growth. And I really
Mm.
believe that that's like a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. What is behind consistency? Because I agree with you. Consistency is like such a powerful value and word, and it's definitely one of my values. What is it behind consistency? Is it that North Star statement, the
Mm.
North Star goal of your million people to help? Is that what keeps you consistent? What is your take on that? The relationship of consistency with, finish the sentence.
Yeah, I love that, dude. And I was actually thinking about this as you were saying it. It's the why. Like for me
Mm.
personally, it's two things. It's like the why has to be big enough to where you have that to fall back on. So for me, my biggest fear is not reaching my full potential. And in order to do that, in order to not do that, I need to be super consistent every day. I run Break to Breathe, like and we can get into this in a second, my daily breathing community every day. I'm doing this forever. Like I do it on holidays, I do it on weekends. Like I committed these 15 minutes. I will do this every single day. And I'm like, sometimes, man, like it's on the weekend, it was on Easter, like nobody shows up. And I just still do it anyways because I
Yeah.
send out the recording
Yeah.
and I committed to myself that if I want to go to these levels in my career profession and help people more, I need to do this every day. So that was
Mm.
just my whole thing. But yeah, man, it's just and I forget. Sorry, dude, I lost my train of thought. What was the point that you had before?
I think you basically nailed it. It's like what's the reason behind consistency? Like why
Oh
would
yes,
somebody do it day
consistency.
after day, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, dude, back to myself for a second on the consistency piece was that I started to feel a certain way of when I was stitching together the right foods, training, the mindset and reflection piece, my relationships, the clarity and vision and what I felt every day. And I couldn't go back. Just as similar to what I said to you before about when when that letting go in Miami of this friction thing, I realized I had created so much of my own shit in my
Yeah.
life that I was done. I was like letting go. And then I had something similar about 2 years ago where I committed every day to doing meditation because
Mm.
it was like before I had these peaks and valleys for 10 years. I'd be in it, I'd be out of it. And then it was like my life was like going from being in HD and super clear. And then it would get foggy. Like it would be like, I would have more self-doubt. Someone would be talking, I'd be judging them for some stupid thing. Like, I'm like, oh God, this is just annoying. Like, I just don't want to, I'm
Yeah.
done, dude. So
Yeah.
that like I had two things in the last few years. One was the full commitment like 2 or 3 years ago to meditation every day. And then the other one was this letting go of removing friction and not bringing in my own judgments and expectations on the thing and just committing to presence. Um, and yeah, so that was where like the consistency of all this stuff where
Yeah.
I can't go back to how I was living or experiencing reality before.
Definitely love that. I love a good like analogy or something, right? Just helps that information stick, like the HD thing versus the kind of fuzzed over otherwise. Yeah, super cool. Um, yeah, I had something else I was going to say too, and here I'm losing my train of thought. Let's just go into breathing because like I have a feeling we're gonna like run out of time without actually talking about, like one of the main reasons I wanted to hear. Let's get
Yeah.
into breathing, man. And like backstory, like we talked about that book, Breathe, the yellow covered one. What's the gentleman's name that wrote it?
Yeah. James Nestor, breath.
That's yeah, right, right. So that is my like somewhat familiarity, and I shared my, like last couple of years, much more aware of my breath. So like I definitely have been like getting into it, and it has made such a powerful change in my life. So I'm really eager to hear about like sort of your origin story with it, and you've given little like tidbits of how it's shown up for you and how it's helped your life. But let's get into this, man. Yeah, breathing. So take it from as far like if you want to do a little origin story on it, or if you want to just jump into the science of it, the floor is yours.
Yeah, yeah. I think the way I like to start this is talking about that we take 22,000 breaths every single day, but not all breaths are created equal. And so the vast majority of us, myself included, until I got into this work, you take air into the body, there's oxygen in that, and then the body just uses it. And that's just the way that it goes. But the thing is that what's so fascinating, Matt, is that what happens to that air coming in through the nose versus the mouth, and from an anatomy standpoint, physiologically, it's very, very different. So I'll give you a few statistics here and then we'll jump into the science. So over 30% of Americans exclusively breathe through their mouths. And this is actually linked to chronic fatigue, higher stress levels, sleep apnea, certain types of allergies, and other health ailments as well. And the when you dive in even deeper to that and look at lung capacity, which is one of the key things that breathwork helps us with, is 30 to 40% of, or excuse me, most adults have access to 30 to 40% of their lung capacity out of 100. So there is a massive opportunity for optimization there. And the issue with the lung capacity piece is that think about if you have less capacity, you could bring in less oxygen. That's just the way that it goes. And the body needs that oxygenation to be able to power our sleep, manage our mental and emotional health, power our performance of whatever it is that we're doing, sales calls, sports, academics, hard conversations with friends. Like all of these things are related. So that part is really important around like the breathwork lung piece. And all my trainings and subjective experience myself, and then also working with at this point almost 1,000 people I've trained in this, I've seen very clearly that the vast majority of people do three things wrong with their breathing. One, they breathe in and out through their mouth. Two, they breathe shallowly, so they don't breathe deeply, and I'll get into why that's a component, very component, getting down to the lower parts of the lungs in the second. And then the last piece is they use the upper chest and the shoulders and the neck, are the secondary muscles, which is linked to the sympathetic nervous system, which perpetuates the stress cycle, releasing adrenaline and cortisol, which the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze, like it's a necessary part of, even back to the human story, the classic thing about, the saber-toothed tiger jumps out and your focus hones, adrenaline and cortisol is released, blood flow is restricted from key areas to protect the body. This is a way that you were supposed to not die, essentially. But now, let's fast forward, and your boss, Steve, calls you and he's like, hey, like this was due on Monday. Like, why are you doing this? I should have hired Alex or whatever. And you're like, oh man, and that same system begins to fire. And it's like you're being mauled by a tiger, except you're in your comfy chair listening to John Mayer or whatever, and like you're there's no like you're good. So it's like this concept of perceived, stress through the body versus actually being a threat. So with that all in mind, you now have to look at what the breath does in relation to the physiology of what happens to that air. So when you breathe in through the nose, you get up to a 20% uptake of oxygen in the blood just by breathing in and out through the nose. So you look at athletes, for example, who got caught in this, like Lance Armstrong, taking performance enhancing drugs, trying to get more oxygen in the blood. Well, you can do this as the most natural way to do it is nasal breathing. And so you get that, there are three parts to this. So the first part is when you breathe in through the nose, you get the pressurization. The second part is the humidification. So the air turns to 100% humidity. Additional moisture is added, and it's also warmed, so it makes it easier for the body to absorb. Very critical. And then there is filtration. So from a health standpoint, when you're breathing through your nose, there are these little hairs, these cilia, that grab things that are coming in that basically aren't supposed to be there. And they're filtering out those pollutants. But it's also, there was a study in 2019 that saw that people that breathe in and out through their nose release nitric oxide. And this actually leads to a healthier body because it combats viruses and bacteria on the initial entry point in. So you're getting like your pressurization, humidification, and filtration just from literally a simple inhale and exhale through the nose. So the second part of this there are three parts. So you have the nose, which is one, and then you have those three subsections of what it does. And then the second part is the speed. So this is really important. So the example that I gave before of most people breathe too quickly, why that's an issue rather, is if you think about it, if I take a breath like this and I go, the air is only going down to here before it starts to go back up. And the problem with that is it gets trapped in what's known as dead space in the trachea. So where you want it to go is down to the lower parts of the lungs down here, because that is where it's more rich with blood, where the lungs are more rich with blood because of gravity. So that's where you want the air to get down to the lowest parts of the lungs. And that can only happen through not only inhaling in through the nose slowly, but exhaling slowly. Because some people think you can go in through the nose and out through the mouth all the time. And yes, there are breathwork techniques that you can do, but all the research points to that habitual breathing patterns should be in and out through the nose. Because if you think about it, Matt, when you exhale out through the nose, it is a tighter passageway out through the nostrils. And so it takes longer for that air to come out, which means that you can continue to absorb more of that oxygen in that breath. So that's why the slow out is so important. And then the last piece of this, and then if you're up for it, we can take a few minutes and I can do a guided thing if you guys are up for that. Is great, is to use the diaphragm. And so the diaphragm, showing here in my body, is this dome-shaped muscle that sits right under the lungs. And what's fascinating is this is actually the body's dominant breathing muscle. So for those out there that are listening to this that have children, watching babies and small kids breathe, they breathe perfectly from the diaphragm in the belly without any training at all. And adults breathe from the chest, upper chest, with basically conditioning of stress and social life. Basically, like that's like just being an adult. Like you get all like gremlined out and like stressed. So if you watch a baby breathe, they breathe perfectly. And why this is relevant, Matt, is that if you're breathing from that area, you're doing a few things. So you're stimulating the vagus nerve, which you have high familiarity with, which is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the body to relax, to reduce inflammation, to lower the heart rate, to lower blood pressure, and really hone the body's focus and put it into that relaxed state where it can heal and recover. So if we're constantly living in, if you think about all the humans across the world, and we're seeing epidemic levels, truthfully, of mental health around suicide, depression, anxiety, and alcohol abuse, which you specialize in, and this breathing component is so critical, because if we are constantly living in that sympathetic state, what they call sympathetic overdrive,
Mm.
how are we going to be able to be there fully for each other, even for first off for ourselves, right? And then
Yeah.
be able to give that out to others in just a more calm, relaxed, open way. The body under stress does not. It's one of the. It's like it's around 50% of all diseases are coming from stress states. Like they're digging into the data, and it's a huge component of what's creating a lot of these ailments. So that's where I believe, back to my mission, if I can. I use the example of, we all basically got the car before we ever went to driver's ed. Like
Yeah.
I
Right.
want to give people the training to help to power their vehicle in a more effective and optimal way.
Yeah, very cool, man. That was like the free master class. Really appreciate that. Some great, like just summarize. This is like the big three with a subset on the first one there with the nose and the benefits of that. Just really well done. You can tell it's something that's you've well researched and you're just
Thank you,
very
bro.
articulate at it. So thanks for sharing that, man.
100%, man. Do you want to? Maybe we can even put on that music again, and
Yeah,
maybe
dude, let's
like
do it for
let's
sure.
do like a
Right.
3 to 5 minute thing, and then
Yeah,
we
for
can.
sure.
We're coming up here on time in a bit, but
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah.
share some of this with your audience, and
Yeah,
just give them a
absolutely.
bit of an experience that they can use.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much. Can you hear that music now? I might have to share it again.
No, no, loud and clear, man.
That's in there. Okay, let's do this, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So if folks have any water by them, feel free to take a sip. And if you're driving right now, definitely keep your eyes open, but you can still continue to do the breathing with us. Ideally, you're finding a place to lie down, but seated works very well too. So I invite you at this time to place your hands comfortably on your knees and close the eyes. Taking a slow inhale in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. Again, deeply in through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. One more here, and inhale and exhale. Continue breathing out as far as you can as you switch your breathing now over to in and out through the nose. Drawing your attention to your heels, making contact on the floor or surface where you lie, sit, or stand. Scanning up the ankles, calves, hamstrings, glutes, low back, mid back, upper back. Arriving at the top of the head. And with this next out breath, just relaxing the shoulders down and away from the ears. When we're on computers all day, we can create that tension in our upper back. Just release that with this breath. Giving yourself agency to be fully here in this moment with your breath. Placing one hand on your chest and the other hand on your belly, I invite you to breathe slowly in and out through the nose. Keeping the hand on your chest as still as you can. While the other hand rises and falls with each breath. helpful tip is when you inhale, just to stick the stomach outwards, pushing outwards. This will allow you to draw more air into the belly, expanding the diaphragm, training the body to breathe in its natural way. We're going to begin with 4 seconds on the inhale and exhale, and then move up to 5 once we get more comfortable. When you breathe in, try not to breathe in too sharply, really making the breaths nice and even so that it feels comfortable by the end of the inhale. And then when you exhale, try not to breathe out too sharply, making the breaths again easy and well managed. So let's exhale this next breath here. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now we're going up to 5 and inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathe in and out. Inhale. Exhale. Last one here, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. Continue breathing out as far as you can. As you place both hands now over the heart, breathing slowly in and out through the nose as you extend gratitude inward. For taking time out of your day to simply slow down and breathe. Extending love and compassion to the person that you were yesterday, the person that you are today, and the person that you will inevitably become. You are loved, and you can accomplish anything that you want in this life. Breathing slowly in and out through the nose and using the diaphragm helps to optimize our health so we can live our best life. Breathe well. Now drawing your awareness back to the room or area where you currently reside, feeling the contact of your body on the surface where you sit or lie, hearing the sound of my voice, my presence, your presence. And in your own time, I invite you to slowly, mindfully, open the eyes. Feel free to get a stretch in. That feels good.
Oh, awesome, brother. Thank you so much for that.
Of course, dude.
That was great. Super relaxed now. Yeah, I love that, dude. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. I imagine
You're welcome, man.
everybody that heard your voice got a lot out of that as well. Dude, we'll put a wrap on it for now. let's open invitation if somebody wants to get a hold of you online. What's the easiest way to find you on social media? Is it a website? Where should we send people?
Yeah. So the easiest way is Instagram. So at Inhabit Mind Body. That's also my TikTok, but I'm more active on Instagram. And my email is SEAN, so Sean, and then at Inhabit Mind Body. Com. And then I'm also I just launched this community called Break to Breathe, where we breathe every day at 9 a.m. PT and 12 p.m. ET, and that's a 15-minute segment that's run with people all over the country, and it's a mix of breath work, gratitude, reflection, and then intention setting and meditation. And it's very short, and it's used as a way to just reset in the middle of the day. We record all of the sessions and put those out, and I can definitely share that with your community and even extend the discount that I was running this past week, which is for 50 cents a day. So it's $15 a month to be part of it, and I'll hold that out for your community and for as long as it as necessary.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And I remember, yeah, as we were about to hop on this, like we're going to publish this right as you're about to, is it relaunch or officially launch? Like, are you speaking as far as like, because I want to say it was the 29th. So we're recording 23rd, May 23rd today. You are launching this thing on the 29th. Is that correct?
Yeah, right around there.
Right
I'm
around
right.
there.
It's already launched right now, so the week prior.
Gotcha.
But I'm doing a much bigger marketing and advertising push, and I got my website that I'm launching for that, and with just more context around what it entails. So
Right
it's
on.
yeah, I'm excited, man.
Yeah, man, get to that next level, right? So, dude, Sean, I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for your time. Thanks for that guided breath work at the end. And yeah, I think the world of what you're doing, and I'm just getting a really good vibe from you as well as a friend and as a colleague and all that. So, dude, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, my pleasure, Matt. You rock, dude. Thank you so much again for giving me the space. I just felt so comfortable the whole time. And yeah, I'm excited to come and meet your community next month and run a session and do anything to help you guys. I really believe and am deeply appreciative of the work you do, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean.
All right, talk soon, buddy. Take care.